Time is an illusion, or is it? You wake up in the morning and the day stretches ahead full of possibilities. 24 whole hours to do anything. But then, before you know it, you're lying in bed again, scrolling through your phone, wondering where all that time went. Sound familiar? This is the story of Ellie, a college sophomore who learned the hard way that time isn't just something you can throw away. It's the currency of your dreams. Ellie was like plenty of students, smart, full of ideas, and always daydreaming about her future. She wanted to start a photography business one day, capture moments so beautifully that strangers would want to hang her pictures in their homes. But Ellie had one problem. She had a habit of wasting time. During lectures, she'd zone out doodling in her notebook. Between classes, she'd scroll through social media or binge-watch TV shows. And when it was time to study? Well, that's when Ellie's procrastination skills really shined. She'd sit down at her desk, ready to tackle an essay, and instead of typing those first words, she'd open TikTok just for a minute. But a minute became 10 minutes, then 30. Then suddenly an hour had vanished and her essay was just a blank screen staring back at her. Ellie always promised herself she'd do better, tomorrow. Tomorrow she'd wake up early and study harder. Tomorrow she'd stop procrastinating. Tomorrow she'd finally review those chapters her professor assigned 2 weeks ago. But when tomorrow arrived, so did her excuses.
I'm too tired. I don't feel like studying right now. I'll work better later.
Later always came and went. At first, it didn't seem like such a big deal. Ellie mostly kept up, barely missing deadlines or cramming before exams. She figured she had plenty of time to catch up. After all, she wasn't failing. She was fine. But then, one cold fall evening, something happened that changed everything. Ellie had an important photography project due. Her professor had given them weeks to prepare, but in true Ellie fashion, she let her mind wander. Instead of brainstorming creative ideas or practicing techniques, she wasted half her nights scrolling through Pinterest or rewatching YouTube tutorials she already knew by heart. On the day before the project was due, Ellie panicked. Her work wasn't just incomplete, it was uninspired. Instead of taking meaningful pictures, she grabbed her camera and rushed through random snapshots of trees and buildings. That night, she stayed up until dawn editing them, trying to turn mediocre pictures into presentable work. When she turned in her project the next day, her professor wasn't impressed.
Ellie, you have so much potential. I've seen what you can do, but this feels rushed. This doesn't reflect your best work.
Ellie nodded in silence, trying to hide the knot forming in her stomach. He wasn't mad. He was disappointed, which somehow felt worse. Later that evening, Ellie walked back to her dorm. She still had homework piling up, exams to study for, and deadlines approaching, but she was too drained to face any of it. So what did she do? She opened Netflix and drowned herself in episodes she'd already seen 1,000 times. Anything to forget that she'd just gotten the worst grade of her college life. That's when Ellie's roommate, Jenna, walked in. Jenna was Ellie's polar opposite, a straight A student, active in clubs, always juggling 5 things at once, but somehow still making time for fun while building an impressive resume.
Rough day?
Yeah. My professor hated my project. It wasn't my best work, but I just didn't have enough time to do everything.
Jenna raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. For a moment, Ellie could feel Jenna's eyes studying her. Then Jenna walked over to her desk, pulled out a notebook, and handed it to Ellie.
What's this?
My schedule. Take a look.
Ellie flipped open the notebook, and her jaw practically hit the floor. Jenna's schedule wasn't just neat, it was a masterpiece. Every hour of every day was planned: morning workouts, study blocks, meetings, club events, creative time, even fun.
It's intense. You seriously do all this every day? Don't you ever feel burnt out?
Jenna smiled.
Not really. I'm not perfect, but I try to make every hour count. That doesn't mean I don't relax or waste time sometimes. I just don't let it control me. You'd be surprised how much free time you actually have when you stop procrastinating. You should try it sometime.
Sure. Maybe one day.
Ellie, listen to me. Every excuse you've ever made, that you're tired or you'll do better tomorrow, or there's not enough time, it's all in your head. Life doesn't happen tomorrow. It happens now. The question isn't, do you have time? It's how are you spending it?
Ellie froze. Something about Jenna's words hit different, like cold water over her skin. She spent the entire night thinking about them. The truth wasn't that she didn't have time. It was that she wasted so much of it chasing distractions and avoiding discomfort. The next morning, Ellie walked into her professor's office and asked for a second chance on her photography project. He hesitated but eventually agreed, with one condition: she'd have to prove she was serious. And Ellie was serious. This time, she didn't wait until the last minute. She wrote down her plan in detail. She made a list of locations, subjects, and techniques to experiment with. And every day, she spent an hour practicing photography after class. She learned new editing software. She borrowed books from the library. She even skipped a Netflix binge night with her friends to finish shooting at golden hour. Was it hard? Absolutely. Did she almost give up? Without a doubt. But every time procrastination whispered in her ear, Ellie remembered Jenna's words. Life doesn't happen tomorrow. It happens now. When Ellie submitted her second project, her professor was stunned.
This is incredible. I see so much growth here. This is your best work. It's work to be proud of.
Ellie smiled, and for the first time in months, that knot in her stomach unraveled. The truth about time is this: you don't need more hours in the day to achieve your dreams. You just need to stop wasting the ones you already have. Ellie didn't become successful overnight. Learning to manage her time took effort and commitment, but the rewards, they were worth far more than she could have imagined. Her grades improved. She joined a photography club and made friends who shared her passion. She even landed her first internship at a local studio. And every time she looked back on her journey, she thought about that afternoon when Jenna handed her a notebook and said those simple yet powerful words: "Life doesn't happen tomorrow, it happens now." So if you're watching this and thinking, "I'll get serious tomorrow," or "I don't feel like doing it now," stop for a second. Look around. This exact moment is time you will never get back. Take a deep breath. Think about the dreams you've been chasing or avoiding. The first step to achieving them doesn't start later. It starts right now. It starts with you.